Ring camera video shows a parent's worst nightmare after a woman in Louisiana allegedly killed her boyfriend's 6-year-old daughter, put her body in a 10-gallon bucket, and left the little girl's body on her mother's front lawn.
The manner of death is homicide. She has multiple injuries, and I'm not going to get into details regarding the injuries because this is still a fluid investigation.
Officials in the New Orleans suburb of Harahan, Louisiana, call the incident a, quote, big shock to a small community. Wednesday morning, 6-year-old Bella Fontenelle's father reported his daughter missing. Hours later, the kindergartner's body was discovered in a bucket on her mother's front lawn.
When they opened up that bucket, they found the 6-year-old deceased inside that bucket. Turned into a homicide investigation. Obviously, at that point, homicide detectives from Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office were calling out to the scene.
Investigators say the woman responsible for Fontenelle's death is her father's girlfriend, 43-year-old Hannah Landon, who also goes by the names Bunok Lim and Bunok Landon. Ring security video shows what appears to be the girlfriend transporting the 10-gallon bucket in a wagon.
We were able to find numerous video from different households in the neighboring area which showed her pulling a wagon down late last night with the bucket inside the back of that wagon.
Landon allegedly pulled the wagon down the street with no attempt to hide the dead child, even as a vehicle drives past her. Investigators believe Landon killed the little girl at her father's home and moved her body about 1 block away to her mother's house.
I mean, both him and the mother are certainly extremely upset, which you would imagine on any person that lost a 6-year-old.
Officials say they later found Landon at a local hospital, but did not explain why she was there. She was taken into custody and booked in the Jefferson Parish Jail. So far, investigators have not revealed a motive in this case, but believe that Fontenelle's biological parents were not involved in her death.
We ended up doing extensive interviews with both the mother and the father, the biological mother and the father. We do not believe that they are involved in any foul play involved with the death of Miss Bella Fontenelle, who is the 6-year-old that is deceased.
Landon is now charged with first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. Right now, she's being held without bond. Reporting for Law and Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
I am legit at a loss for words. That's exactly why I had to play the audio rather than read any article attached to this story. Before I get into what I'm going to say, RIP to this little girl, only 6 years old. I can only imagine what her last moments or what would become her last moments on earth were like in the hands of the beast in the picture next to her. This is like next level torture right here. I have been doing videos on my channel of this magnitude since 2016, and I have never, ever come across a story like this before in my life. This sounds like something out of a horror movie. It doesn't even sound real. And the craziest part about it is there are stories like this that happen all the time that you don't know about because they go unreported. And the even more worst part, there are even crazier stories like this that you don't hear about all the time because they go unreported. This woman, understand this, this woman killed this little girl, put her body in a bucket, put the bucket in a wagon, dragged the wagon down the street a block from where she was staying at with the girl's father, who was her boyfriend, and left the bucket in the front yard of the girl's biological mother. If I was her mother, she would have got her ass dragged up and down that damn block. And that's just putting it lightly. That, and it would be levels to it. If I was the girl's father, it would be a tag team thing going on with the biological mother and the father. Whatever issues they had, they would have to put it to the side. And they would have to tag team this bitch. Like, you have to be diabolically, psychologically deranged to even think of doing something like this. And in the audio, which was more of a news clip off of the Law and Crime YouTube channel, you can actually see on a Ring device of her literally walking down the street at night, pulling this wagon with the bucket in it. Like when I was listening to the audio, when I was listening to the news clip, y'all can't see it, of course. You can legit actually see this woman walking down the street with pulling a wagon with a bucket, and his little girl is inside of that bucket. They said that the bucket weighed they said a 10-gallon bucket. That's the equivalent, of course, of putting 10 1-gallon jugs of water in a bucket. And they said a truck had rolled down, but no one's going to think of, okay, you're pulling a wagon down, so like no one's going to really think anything of it. I mean, that's not something unheard of. But at the same time, that is just insanity. My biggest question is, what the hell would drive someone to do something like this? That's what I really want the backstory behind this. What would make you kill this girl? It's definitely more to the story. It's not like this woman just decided to wake up one day and he said, you know what? I feel like committing the most gruesome murder possible. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and kill my boyfriend's daughter and put her in a bucket. And then to top it off, I'm going to put her body in a bucket, put it in a wagon, drag her down the street and drop the bucket off in front of her mother's home. The fact that she did that leads me to believe she had an issue with the mother. Because think about it, the mother it's not like the mother lived over an hour away. It's not like she lived 30 minutes away. They said she lived about a block away from her ex, which would be her current, which needs to be her ex-boyfriend. I'm sure he's more than going to dump her if he hasn't done so already. My best bet is that this woman had a gripe or an axe to grind with the biological mother. And this was her way of getting back at her. And it's so sad because even though this little girl's biological mother and her father are not together anymore, that's the only connection they had to each other was their daughter. Now the connection is completely gone, assuming that's the only child they had with each other. Which to me is what it sounds like. The connection, the link that they had with each other is now gone. And this bitch is responsible. I hope wherever she goes, because they gave her the right charge, was the first degree. Because this is hands down, you don't have to second guess if this is murder in the first degree. She premeditated this. And the fact that they said that she put her in a bucket, I didn't want to say this, but I'm going to have to because I was hoping the video would do it. There is no way, again, there is no way that this little girl could have fit in that bucket whole, intact. This woman had to have dismembered this girl and put her body in the bucket. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of those cartels. When they hack people up and they put them into those big cylinder barrels. And they have to stuff the pieces in there. And sometimes you see the limbs sticking out and the blood leaking out. Yeah, that's what this reminds me of. She did, in my opinion, a cartel. If that's what it comes out to be. Allegedly, to me, it seems like she did a cartel style dismemberment of this child. Because there's no way that this little girl at 6 years old could have fit whole in that bucket. Now, if this was a baby, like a toddler, yeah. But this is a 6-year-old girl. She's a certain height. She's taller than that bucket. It's no way she would have fit in there whole because when I was looking at the video, the bucket had the lid on top of it. It was sealed. So I believe she dismembered her. I tell y'all that I hate doing stories like this, but they have to be told or have to be put out there. And I need to know from my subscribers because I believe this happened in Louisiana. I believe it happened in Louisiana. Can y'all let me know in the chat or in the comment section, have you heard of this story? Because this just absolutely blows my mind. I'm like infuriated right now. I am infuriated with this story. This is one of those stories that doesn't even need to go to trial. This should be a clear, open, and shut case. No need to second guess if it's first degree murder or if she even did it. She did it. The only thing that they need to figure out is the motive. What made her decide to commit such a heinous, brutal, inhumane act? Because as far as I'm concerned, this chick is not human. She is a demon. No human being would do this to anyone, let alone a 6-year-old little girl. And for what? For allegedly whatever issues you might have had with the mother? Because that's where I'm leaning towards this with. Because if it had nothing to do with the mother, she would not have put her in a bucket in a wagon and then pulled the wagon down the street and then left the bucket with her daughter's body in the yard. Could you imagine how this little girl's mother responded to that? She's going to be forever traumatized that the last time she sees her daughter is inside of a damn bucket. That mother probably wanted to go over there and beat her ass. And you know what? They should have, if that's what she wanted to do, they should have let her do it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those trials where someone leaps across the table. And what I mean by that is when family members of the deceased, when someone does something like this or any crime that makes them, where the person who's on trial takes out a loved one and the person leaps across the table, I wouldn't be surprised if the mother and the father tried to do that with her. And you know what? If I was security in that particular trial, I would turn my head the other way and pretend I didn't see it. Because guess what? Whatever I don't see, I don't know. This is one of the most shocking stories I have done so far this year. And I've done, as y'all know, plenty of stories. But this one right here literally has my blood boiling. So I wanted to come in and add some more stuff to this. Something just told me that there was going to be more that was going to come out about this story. And I had to change a little bit of something up because initially in the first part of the video, I'm thinking to myself, how in the world did this woman stuff this girl's body into this bucket hole? But according to this report that came out a couple days after I did the first part of the video, it says that her body was still intact, contrary to public speculation, which of course would be mine and plenty of others, because a lot of people would speculate that she was dismembered and put into this bucket, considering her age and her height. And as a child, deaths are always terrible, especially with ones like this that should have not have happened. Quite honestly, it's personal for all of us. It says Miss Landon allegedly stuffed the girl's body into a 10-gallon chlorine drum and sealed it with a lid before loading it into a child's play wagon and dragging it more than a block to Miss Zeldin's house on Tuesday evening, according to authorities. Now, that was the first part. Now, this is the one right here where I said, to me, it felt like something was personal between her and the mother. Well, on this article from NBC News, it says that it's a history of alleged altercations. A court documents obtained by NBC News shows Landon has allegedly had past altercations with some of Bella's family members, including her mother. In June 2021, Landon was served a summons for simple battery after she allegedly attacked Bella's aunt, her mother's sister, at a swim meet, allegedly leaving the woman with visible scratches below her left eye and on her left hand, according to the police report. Bunak, that's the other name that they have for Hannah. She's basically the same person. Was extremely uncooperative with officers for the duration of their time on scene, initially refusing to even identify herself, the report says. It goes on to say, Landon told officers that Bella's aunt attacked her unprovoked, but could not produce any witnesses to corroborate her account, and refused to allow officers to examine her for injuries, according to the police report. The next month, Landon tried to file for a temporary restraining order against Bella's mother and aunt, alleging that they attacked her at the swim meet and that Bella's mother had made multiple threats of harm against her. The restraining order was later dissolved, and Landon's petition for a permanent injunction and damages was denied, court documents showed. So this woman has a history, like they said, of incidents with particularly the mother and her side of the family, which leads me again to my initial what's the word that I'm looking for? My initial speculation that this was a personal matter for her. It seems to me she's had an issue with this little girl's mother and apparently her side of the family, at least extended to the aunt, for quite some time. So that's why I believe she was doing this to get back at her. I also read some other things. They said that, when the father discovered that his daughter was missing, they started to file, call it authority. All the typical things that a parent would do when they find that their child is not around or something is just completely off. But again, this story right here is one of the craziest stories I have done all year. And it's only, me recording this part May 5th. Of course, the first part was recorded about a week or so ago when I first learned about it. But either way, I had also read that what she did is enough to get her one of two consequences: the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. I don't know which decision they're going to go with. Personally, I would choose to do the death penalty. However, I know that we know how long that would usually take in something like that. It's not like she gets the death penalty today and she's on the chair by next week. We know that she would get the death penalty today and probably wouldn't get into the table until like the next 10 years or so. And with life without parole, she's just basically sitting there in a cell waiting to die.